Good evening. And thank you for being here. It's so wonderful to see so many people out, some people who we haven't seen in a really long time, some people who are meeting for the first time. So thank you so much on behalf of WFAE for being here. Welcome to EQUALibrium Live. This is our ongoing series at WFAE of conversations about race and equity issues. We're going to air this Monday morning on Charlotte Talks and Monday evening at 7 on WFAE, so tune in for that if you want to hear it again. A couple of housekeeping things, just so that you know we are going to be recording this in time for Charlotte Talks, so we're going to have to stop real briefly each segment of the show. We've got 3 segments of the show, but not long enough for you to leave or get up and that sort of thing. So we're just going to pause for a moment, make sure that our microphones are okay, and then we'll move on. After our 3 segments of the normal show are recorded, we are going to do a Q&A session. So you'll have an opportunity to ask questions or make comments, that sort of thing. We'll have some microphones, including this one, sort of roaming around the room. So if you want to make a comment afterwards, just raise your hand. And Gabe Altieri and Jesse Steinmetz will bring a microphone over to you and we'll get your question. We've got about half an hour for that after the show. So thank you again for being here. I want to introduce WFAE weekend host and reporter Nick Delacanal.
Good evening. And again, thank you to everyone for joining us for this conversation on the importance and impact on the Latino community in the Charlotte region. WFAE launched its Race and Equity team in 2020 to address the systematic issues impacting communities of color and those living in poverty around the Charlotte area. That initiative has been made possible by many of you in the room, and also by the generous contribution of Novant Health, which has committed to giving $500,000 over 5 years to support this work. We want to say thanks. And we want to say thanks again to the leadership at Novant Health for supporting this kind of journalism on the challenges that communities face and also in pursuing solutions. And I want to acknowledge, as Penda did earlier, some of Novant's executives who are joining us today. Gabriela Francisco, who's the Strategy Execution Manager, who is among us somewhere. Here we are. And I'd also like to welcome to the stage Dr. Jerome Williams Jr., who is an interventional cardiologist and Senior Vice President of Consumer Engagement for Novant Health. He also serves as a physician leader on Novant Health's Health Equity Council. He was one of the founding members of the Carolinas Association for Community Health Equity and served as co-chair of the Mecklenburg County COVID-19 Recovery and Renewal Task Force. He also serves on the boards of the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance Foundation, One Charlotte Health Alliance, and Charlotte Community Health Clinic, the Robert Wood Johnson National Advisory Committee, and the UNC Clinical Translational Science Award External Advisory Board. And in 2021, Dr. Williams was recognized by Modern Healthcare Magazine as a top 25 innovator and received the Charlotte Business Journal's Healthcare Heroes Award. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jerome Williams.
Thank you, Nick. Ooh, what a beautiful audience, beautiful looking audience. Well, once again, thank you, Nick, and thank you, WFAE, for your commitment and leadership, your leadership in addressing race and equity in our communities. On behalf of Novant Health, it's an honor to be here tonight. My name is Dr. Jerome Williams Jr., and I am Senior Vice President for Consumer Engagement at Novant Health. And Novant Health is a large, not-for-profit integrated health system with over 15 hospitals, 800 ambulatory facilities, 35,000 team members throughout North Carolina and Georgia. Novant Health has a strong commitment to race and equity in our organization and the areas we serve. We believe rigorous reporting on race and equity will improve our communities by fostering a greater level of understanding. That is why Novant Health has committed to underwriting WFAE's Race and Equity Reporting Team. Novant Health is dedicated to improving the health of communities one person at a time. You may be wondering, why a healthcare system would want to underwrite a reporting team. It is because WFAE's Race and Equity Reporting Team underscores Novant Health's mission and core values, including those of diversity, inclusion, equity, personal excellence, and as far as I'm concerned, the most important one, courage, because it takes courage, takes a lot of courage to promote change. With a continued dedication to shining a light on inequities in our communities, investigating causes and solutions, and telling stories that personalize these challenges, we'll all be better informed and have the opportunity to create change. We know we have real health equity gaps in our communities. While Novant has long been working to close these gaps, the COVID pandemic only made them worse. That's why Novant is committed and is even making more strides to improve the health of our communities beyond the four walls of our facilities. Social determinants of health are non-medical factors and are the conditions in the environments where people are born, live, work, play that affect a wide range of health, functioning, and quality of life outcomes and risks. Do you know that these factors, the social determinants of health, account for 80% of a person's well-being? Just to put it another way, only 20% of chronic medical conditions have anything to do with biology and genetics, and 80% has to do with the behaviors and environments that we engage in, that we live in. Novant Health Community Engagement provides programs and services that are strategically focused on achieving health equity by improving access to health care, improving access to health and human resources, and creating opportunities for upward mobility in all communities, especially those communities that need it most. In 2021, Novant provided more than $1.1 billion in community benefit, including financial assistance and services. Our strategy for everything we do at Novant starts with the patient front and center. How can we eliminate their pain points? What do they need, and how can we change to meet those needs? It's a balanced approach to quality, patient engagement, team member engagement, and operational excellence. To achieve this, we recognize that health equity is a shared driver in improved quality, safety, and human experience. Our teams across the organization look at their respective patient data using a standard health equity lens to identify gaps and opportunities for improvement. This is an intentional exercise that we engage in. Every institute at Novant Health has a goal they've identified to close disparity gaps. In addition, we set system-wide long-term goals around specific health equity measures. For example, as we recognize Breast Cancer Awareness Month and Hispanic Heritage Month, I'm proud to highlight the work Novant Health is doing to ensure patients have equitable access to care. Our mammogram data revealed a disparity that existed for Asian and Latina patients, which are two of our fastest growing patient populations. For more than 2 years, our teams have worked to increase the percentage of breast cancer screening mammograms among Asian and Latina patients. I'm proud to say that at the end of last year, December 2021, we've met or exceeded all 3 metrics associated with this goal and have maintained that progress. Our focus on mammograms will continue as we identify other healthcare disparities and work to close those gaps. Last month, our work was validated by NCQA, which is a national accrediting body. We received accreditation in health equity as well as the social determinants of health. One of only 2, I'll say it again, one of only 2 healthcare systems in the nation that received this designation. Some of the programs in place that contribute to earning this accreditation include equitable COVID-19 vaccine distribution, compassionate care designation for LGBTQ care, education in culturally and linguistically sensitive care, and achievement of our long-term breast cancer screening goals that I previously mentioned. Another fact that you may not be aware of is that earlier this year, Novant Health opened the UNC School of Medicine Novant Health Charlotte campus, aligning health equity, community engagement, and medical education. With curriculum dedicated to health equity, we're helping to ensure the next generation of medical providers start their careers with a health equity lens, focusing on how to improve everyone's health status. These medical students are involved with our community engagement team to learn about initiatives and programs addressing health equity. One such program includes the One Charlotte Health Alliance. Novant is a founding member of the One Charlotte Health Alliance, which is a partnership between Novant Health, Atrium Health, and Mecklenburg County Health that works to improve the health of communities we serve. We've pooled our efforts and resources to build upon existing work and come together in partnership with our communities, One of our most notable partnerships is with Michael Jordan, who has generously donated $7 million to open 2 Novant Health Michael Jordan Family Medical Clinics in Charlotte that provide vital access to primary care and preventive care in underserved communities. This also includes behavioral health and social support services. These clinics, which were strategically placed in health priority zip codes, were instrumental to the community and with our community during the pandemic. We've been blessed by this relationship with Mr. Jordan, and we'll be opening up 2 more clinics in our coastal markets, thanks again to a $10 million donation that he and his family have provided. We look forward to seeing the work of WFAE Race and Equity Team and continue to work collaborations as we work to achieve health equity by identifying and addressing health disparities across the continuum of care, inside and outside our hospital walls. Once again, on behalf of Novant Health, thank you for having me here tonight, and I'm looking forward to the program.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Appreciate it. Nick, is Nick DeLacanal still here? There you are. I have to keep my eye on you. Because years ago, I was doing a stage show, and I called Nick up on the stage. And I said, he just graduated from high school. And I said, what do you want to be when you grow up, little boy? And he said, I want your job. A couple of years go by, I walk into the newsroom, there's Nick. He's working for us. And I saw you here tonight, and I thought, oh my God, I'm being replaced. So if I fall over, you know where I'm sitting, right? Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. I don't know about you, but this is the first time I've been out of the house since the pandemic. And it's the first time I've worn a suit in 2.5 years. So the good news is that it still fits, and the pants were actually loose. So that's a good thing. We want to thank Wells Fargo and some of our other sponsors for being a part of this tonight and making this night responsible. And I want to introduce, before we start, and introduce her again on the air, Hilda Guardian, who is the publisher of La Noticia. I can never say it right. Hilda will be helping me through this tonight. She's going to be my co-host tonight. She's never done this. Be gentle. Okay?
Thank you.
We'll make it through unscathed.
Yes, we will. Very happy to be here.
So we're doing it as a Charlotte Talks, which means there'll be 2 breaks in the program, which we won't take the full break. We'll just stop and restart, as Wendy told you. It's also a radio program, so we want to know that you're here. So if somebody says something that's mildly amusing, you can feel free to laugh. You can you can applaud if you'd like to. We want to hear you. We want to know that this is not an empty room with a lot of echo. So thank you for being here. We're going to start and barrel through and see what happens on the other side. Oh, at the end of it, we'll stop and we'll open it up to questions in the audience, and we'll have somebody float around here with a microphone so that you can be heard by the masses at large. This is a special edition of Charlotte Talks, EQUALibrium, the growing impact and influence of Latinos on the Charlotte area. I'm Mike Collins, and I'm joined for this hour by Hilda Gurdian. She is the publisher of Charlotte's Spanish-language newspaper, La Noticia. She and I will moderate this hour's discussion on the tremendous growth of the Latino community in North Carolina and in Charlotte. And thank you for doing this with me. You're going to help me through this tonight?
Yes, I am going to help you, and it's my pleasure to do so, Mike.
Great. I'm looking forward to it. We're doing this program, by the way, in front of a live audience at the Charlotte Museum of History. I told them to make noise before we started. I didn't mean that much. Anyway, we're doing this program in front of a live audience at the Charlotte Museum of History to examine the historic changes being made here as we experience the growing influence of this segment of our population. 170,000 Latinos call Charlotte home, and they bring with them their language and their culture. 60% of these people, however, were born in the United States, so we are witnessing a melding of language and culture in ways that benefit our economy and also influence various aspects of life, from the food we eat to the entertainment we consume. Although Charlotte has been recognized as the first welcoming certified city in the Southeast, a designation given to cities that serve as a model for creating policies and programs reflecting a commitment to immigrant inclusion, there are still challenges faced by members of the Latino community and the community at large, working to become one. We explore as much of this as we can in an hour with Federico Rios. He's an assistant director of the Office of Equity, Mobility, and Immigration Integration for the City of Charlotte. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Mike.
Good to see you in person. Garcia Gonzalez is executive director of the Women's Business Center of Charlotte. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Jose Hernandez Perez, I didn't say it right. Jose Fernandez Perez is executive director of the Latin American Coalition. Welcome back. And Lennon Caro is a lead community researcher at Camino Research Institute. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Federico, let me start with you. I just mentioned that Charlotte was recognized as the first city in the Southeast to be named a welcoming certified city, one that has made this commitment to immigrant inclusion, which means that we are ahead of the curve in the South, at least. So how did that come to be so, and what does it mean for this city and for the people who live here?
Thank you for the question, Mike. Receiving the certification was probably one of the proudest moments in my career. We are a partner city with Welcoming America, a national nonprofit organization that works with cities around the country addressing their policies and programs related to immigrant integration. And so they did a comprehensive audit of all of our systems and services to review how individuals who are English language learners are accessing our services and how we can better promote that access. And so through that comprehensive review, we were able to establish metrics and resources that would most appropriately serve those individuals.
And one of the goals that you've set is to ensure that people who are coming here, immigrating here, feel welcomed here, which sounds like a pretty tall order to me. So how do you accomplish that, and how successful do you think you've been in that effort?
Well, it's always a moving target, but I feel that we're successful in respect to our ability to continue to serve as a liaison for immigrant community members. We're accessible. We have the opportunities to connect with individuals and organizations, some of which are represented on this panel, and serve really as the ombudsman to get those challenges that immigrant community members face addressed through policy, through the work that staff endeavors to do with the City of Charlotte.
Hilda.
We are hoping to focus this conversation on the benefits that the Latino community bring to Charlotte. Could you please, each of you, give us one or two examples that you feel is a contribution that members of the Latino community have made to the well-being of Charlotte Mecklenburg?
Thank you. Hilda's looking at me. Thank you for the question, because I think it's extremely important that we highlight the triumphs of the Latino community. I have been here since 1999, have seen the beautiful growth of Charlotte, and along with the invitation of, once Charlotte came to be the fourth city of access to, with the cost of living and all the different beautiful things that Charlotte provided, there was a high influx of Latinos into this area. Also remember, back then, the construction business was extremely high, and that also brought a lot of professionals, bilingual professionals from United States, from everywhere in the United States. So I have seen the growth, and I have seen the benefit and the wonderful impact of the growth of the entrepreneurial business community here in Charlotte. So I'm very happy to see all this positive support and how the entrepreneurs are giving back to the area. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Carol.
And just to add on to Rocio really quick, so Community Research Institute did a strength and needs-based assessment on the Latino communities of Mecklenburg County. And in the survey, we asked about, what do you think are the strengths of the Latino community? And the number one answer was entrepreneurship. And I believe, I mean, you can go around Charlotte. If you lived in Charlotte for a long time, you can see that there's a lot more Latino business happening around town. And, you know, it's certainly reflected in the data that, you know, Latinos see themselves as entrepreneurial.
I would say that first, it's the workforce. We're known for being a hardworking community. And not only that, but we're also bringing a professional workforce to Charlotte that is allowing us to compete nationally and internationally. So the growth of Charlotte, I think, since the start, it started, I think, with the building of the Bank of America Tower, when we started bringing a lot of the workers. I've been in Charlotte for 45 years, so I've seen that growth. And I realized at that moment that Charlotte is not the same as it used to be, and it has been better, and I think it's been better because of the influx of immigrants, including Latinos.
Federico?
Yeah, so if I can add, I'd say to stay on the workforce development, economic development piece, immigrants in this community, immigrants writ large, not solely Latinos, but Latinos obviously making up the biggest percentage of that larger immigrant population, are responsible for somewhere around $16 billion in GDP for this county. So the economic impact of immigrants is significant. Add to that the cultural richness. You know, you drive through corridors of town, I'm sure all of you enjoy many of our food items. And just the benefits that we get as a bilingual, multilingual community that really gets to celebrate the diversity of cultures that make up the tapestry that is this city.
Mm-hmm. I want to come back something that you talked about, Lennon, a minute ago, the needs assessment survey that your organization conducted, I think, this year or 2021, and you'd done a previous one in 2006.
Well, that 2006 one was actually done by the Urban Institute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, this survey that you took reveals a number of strengths, among them the willingness to start a business, which you referred to, entrepreneurship, bilingual language skills, which these people bring to the table, a strong work ethic. It also revealed that 1/3 of the adults in this population experience symptoms of depression and anxiety and need more employment training and opportunities. So I guess the question is, does the good that you found outweigh the bad?
Well, I think we can use a lot of the good to try to, let's say, treat the bad. So at Community Research Institute, we primarily utilize a community-based participatory research approach. And what that is that we treat the community as an equal partner in any research efforts that we try to do. So when we were designing the survey, a lot of the community advisory board members who were leaders of the Latino community in Mecklenburg County advised us to ask questions around not only, do you need healthcare services? Do you need ESL classes? Do you need, help applying for school? They were also interested in asking about, what was their degree in their country of origin? And what we're finding is that a lot of immigrants that took the survey actually were educated in their country of origin. They have degrees in business administration and engineering and chemistry. But in the survey, we also ask, what's your current profession now in the US? And we're seeing that a lot of them transitioned into, not to say that these positions are less valuable, but of lower economic, socioeconomic status, like construction, cleaning industries, food service, things like that. So in my opinion, there's a lot of untapped potential within the Hispanic community that could be utilized, because we try to find solutions within the community to meet the needs. And the idea of bilingualism, I believe that we can solve issues around access in trying to find skilled bilingual individuals within the community that already have the skills equipped but have issues with recertification. And I think that's one solution in which we can use the good to meet the bad.
As I was reading, through that survey, that's what stuck out to me and really disturbed me, the fact that these people are coming here with advanced degrees, with professional degrees, and they're finding themselves doing jobs that they're overqualified for. So I'm just wondering, is anybody working to fix that? Why is that, and how do you fix that?
Well, some of the issues are systemic, right, in which, it could be very hard to afford the recertification process. But I know at Camino, and I know there's efforts in these other organizations the panelists represent here, we try to work through some of these issues through workshops to try to educate them, provide them resources on where they can go to get help to either find grants or find funds for recertification. But it's going to take a team effort. None of us can do it alone, but it's really important that we try to strategize together to find a solution to this issue.
Hilda.
Rocio, during the first 6 months of this year, the Secretary of State, Elaine Marshall, stated her office registered the creation of 93,000 new businesses. How many of those new businesses were started by members of the Latino community?
Well, that is a question and an answer that is very difficult to answer, because when you open a business, the demographics are not asked. Usually, you just have to provide information of the type of business, the legal entity, the address, but the demographics are not asked. So we don't know whether they're females, whether they're males, whether they're minority-owned, or anything like that. Once that business is open and they feel that it is beneficial to them to become certified, meaning that now they have engaged into a government or a private entity to provide them with a business with a certification, then that's when all those numbers begin to pop up in the list. So for example, here in Charlotte, we have over 39,000 small businesses. But only once those small businesses reach out to either Mecklenburg County or the city of Charlotte to become certified, is that now they are coming up in the list, and now we know whether they are minority, women-owned, LGBT, veteran-owned. So unfortunately, those statistics, even the state is not able to provide that.
I know, Hilda, that you have a follow-up question for Rocio on that, but we'll have to take it after the break because we're coming up to one of those nasty little things that we have to do. And when we come back, we'll talk more about entrepreneurship and the workforce and the bilingual nature of that workforce and more. We're coming to you from the Charlotte Museum of History, part of our EQUALibrium, the growing impact and influence of Latinos on the Charlotte area, on Charlotte Talks. It's Charlotte Talks on listener-funded 90.7 WFAE and WFAE.org. I'm Mike Collins. We're coming from the Charlotte Museum of History in the first of a series of programs based on EQUALibrium, the growing impact and influence of Latinos in the Charlotte area. Is this one today, recorded before a live audience. Hilda Gurdian is my host, or my co-host. She is the publisher of La Noticia, and we're here with four different guests. Federico Rios, Assistant Director of the Office of Equity, Mobility, and Immigration Integration for the City of Charlotte. Rocio Gonzalez, Executive Director of the Women's Business Center of Charlotte. Jose Hernandez Paris, Executive Director of the Latin American Coalition. And Lennon Caro, Lead Communications Researcher for the Camino Research Institute. Hilda. Go ahead.
Yeah, Rocio, what do you think are the main factors that contribute to the entrepreneurial spirit of the Latino community?
Thank you. I want to tag along with what Lennon was saying. There are a lot of members of the Latino community that are overqualified. They have a degree, they have a lot of knowledge, and once they go into the workforce, they become the experts in that trade. And once they see that they are able to understand the business deeply, they begin to see themselves owning that business. There's a lot of people in our community that started with the construction business, and they learned the trade, and now they're owners of construction businesses, hiring 20 and 60 and 100 people. The same with the cleaning, with janitorial, with many other industries. So the good and the bad is that a lot of talent is here that cannot continue to develop their own career. However, that knowledge empowers them to become entrepreneurs. And also the Latino community, we are taught to be self-sufficient, to do our best, and sometimes opening a business is a way to break that ceiling.
Thank you.
Jose, you're with the Latin American Coalition. As the Latino community grows here in Charlotte, there are more and more interactions among native Charlotteans, Anglos, and people who speak two languages, Spanish and English. Talk about the benefits that this bilingual nature brings to businesses and to the community at large.
I think the benefit is not only for the Latino community. I've seen the benefit also for individuals who want to advance their career. On average, a bilingual person makes about 10% more income than a non-bilingual person. And so it gives an opportunity for many of our graduates from bilingual programs or immersion programs in Charlotte Mecklenburg schools to develop themselves in a career where they have an opportunity not only nationally but internationally to compete. So we're not only helping Charlotte, we're helping create a nation that is able to compete internationally with other countries who are taking advantage of internationalization of our world. I remember Colin Powell once said that we have worked for many years to globalize the world, but we failed to globalize ourselves. So I think that we are energizing our community with the multicultural aspect that we bring.
I have a question for Rocio. Rocio, many bilingual people feel that they are being treated as unpaid translators in their places of work. Now, Jose mentioned that. Jose mentioned that some employers pay about 10% higher to people who are bilingual. Do you think that is true? Do you think that is correct? Should they be paid more? Is that the case everywhere throughout the Charlotte Mecklenburg? Are all the employers paying more to people who are bilingual, who speak Spanish, and they use that language in their places of job? And why?
Hilda, you just asked me like 4 questions right there. I'm going to start with the first one. I lived it.
She's following my lead.
I know. She's really good, Mike. Watch out, too. I'm going to answer the very first one. I lived it. I was in the real estate arena back in 2000s when my first paid ad was with La Noticia, and there were only maybe 3 or 4 real estate bilingual agents. There were not any attorneys, bilingual attorneys, or inspectors, or the loan officers were very scarce. So I had to be the interpreter for the inspector, for the attorney, for everybody. I had to learn each and everybody's job to be able to provide the appropriate service to the Latinos. So yes, I do feel that I appreciate that the corporations reach out to the bilingual staff. I really wish they would value the power of having 2 languages, not only just Spanish, but being able to provide the appropriate support to the community in their language is extremely valuable, and that could be shown in their salary.
Federico, you
Yeah,
have a
so
comment?
I'll just add, I too have lived it and have been unpaid interpretation. You know, with the city of Charlotte, we pay a 5% premium for bilingual individuals in critical fields like police, fire, aviation, housing, and neighborhood services, because again, we recognize the importance of that skill set and the fact that you can talk to so many more people. Personally, you know, I know Spanish because my mother, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother, who all shared the raising responsibilities for me, never learned English. And so what would be perceived as a lack of ability actually allowed me opportunities. I've never not had an opportunity to be employed. There's always opportunities for a bilingual individual. I remember distinctly, quick anecdote, my children ended up going to Oaklawn Language Academy and learned Spanish. And people would say, well, why would they do that? Well, I'm not good at teaching it. It was just the language spoken, right? But I had to cry to my wife that they needed to know this, not just for the fact that they would connect deeper to their culture and be able to speak to their grandmother, because I know personally the opportunities that having a bilingual skill set opens to an individual.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So I'll stick with you, Federico. The Latino community, as we've said, is the fastest growing population in Charlotte. I think 61% of them were actually born here, though, so we're growing by birth, not necessarily by immigration. But we still are witnessing this influx of migrants from across our southern border. As many as 1,400 people came here in May who had crossed the border. Local organizations are stretched thin to handle this, and more come every day. So how are we doing this? Was the city prepared for this? What can we do to prepare for this to continue?
It's a complex answer to provide to a really deep question. I think we knew that during COVID there was going to be a freeze at the border. We saw that play out. We knew that individuals were clamoring to come seek asylum opportunities specifically in this country. And so we knew that that would lead to an influx in time as the border was reopened. Thankfully, we have organizations like the Latin American Coalition, like Camino, that have dutifully served these individuals. But the truth is that it's really, really difficult to provide a full network of support, a full mechanism to provide for every single one of their needs. What I will say is consistent through the narrative of all the individuals that have come, and I'm maybe stealing a bit of Jose's narrative, is that the resilience is incredible. You're talking about individuals that are highly traumatized from whatever experience led them to leave everything that they've known, further traumatized through the migration to get here, then additionally traumatized by the acculturation process. And somehow, within months, they're gainfully employed, they're providing for their family, and they're creating opportunities for others. That is the immigrant story I know.
Hilda and I were talking about this just before this program began, about her own experience coming here with her family years ago from Venezuela. And Jose, I'm wondering if that's a story that Americans need to understand more clearly, that these people are not coming here because they want to. They're coming here because they have to. And they'll come here come hell or high water, because where they are is unsustainable. So how do we tell that story more effectively? How do we make people understand that these people not only come here because they have to, that once they get here and they've overcome all of that, they have more stuff to overcome, and they overcome it?
Yeah. Here's a plug for WFAE.
Go right ahead.
we need to have more forums like this. The narrative of those who feed fear is very easy, and they'll pick on one individual or one situation that may have happened out of thousands of stories, millions of stories of productive immigrants, and they'll highlight that story to create fear among people and to turn the immigrant word into a negative word. We will not allow that to happen in Charlotte. We have a welcoming city. We have organizations and individuals that are willing to fight for these immigrants to be able to make Charlotte home and to continue to contribute to this community. So the way to change this is to continue to share our stories, to continue to show the reality of the immigrant experience, in both economically, culturally, and social.
And given the political environment, it is clear that those stories will have to be increasingly shared, because if your survey is to be believed, Lennon, you say the future is Latino in Charlotte, Mecklenburg. A lot of these people who are the future are under 25. So as they grow older, as they have families of their own, what is that going to mean for Charlotte?
So what I think that's going to mean for Charlotte is that we're going to see a lot more Latino people. Well, first of all. Second of all, I think in terms of what's this going to mean for the city, I think we need to think through on how can we change the structure of the city in a way that can be a bit more compatible with Latino families. So in the survey, in the study, we did the survey, but we also did focus groups. And I'm a qualitative research. My background is in cultural anthropology, so I love doing focus groups and interviews because you really get into the lived experiences of people. And for a lot of the participants, they express difficulties in navigating the school system, in which they find a difficult time in, finding a Spanish-speaking person to talk about their child, to talk about, whether or not their child is sick, they need to pick them up, to talk about how they're doing in school. And it's very, frustrating for them. In addition, not only just the school system in general, but the education system, a lot of the participants that we talked to expressed frustrations in trying to understand, what does my child need to do in order to apply for college? Yeah. And it's not an obvious thing. It's it's a very socially informed process. You have to know about if you want to be competitive for scholarships or for different colleges, you have to have X amount of extracurricular activities. You have to have X amount of titles to your resume and things like that. So I think it's that we need to prepare the city to be able to absorb and integrate these Latino families a bit more readily.
Rocio.
Yes, I would like to add that there are, I would say, it's my opinion, that there are two groups of Latinos, the non-English speaking Latinos and the bilingual Latinos. We have a lot of US-born Latinos, and because Charlotte is such a welcoming city and we love the weather and the airport and all these wonderful things that Charlotte has, there's a lot of bilingual US-born Latinos moving from the United States into Charlotte and North Carolina as a whole. So when we think of Charlotte being Latino in 2030, I want you to be happy about it, because there are many more similarities than differences that we have. And when we think that we're going to have two Charlottes, don't worry, we are assimilating. We're here, this is our home, and we are going to care for our home. So I would say that we will always have the migrant community, non-English speaking members of the community coming from everywhere in the world. But sooner or later, they will acculturate, they will assimilate, they will make this their home. And we should be very, very proud to have a city as Charlotte and be as welcoming as it is right now.
Thank you, Rocio. Now, let me go back to you, Lenny. Could you please elaborate for us what is the impact, how these young Latinos are impacting our city in the culture, economy, the politics, etc.?
So in terms of impact, I think, well, I guess I can be a little autobiographical here, because I'm a U.S.-born Latino. And I was raised in a Colombian household, and luckily my parents made it a point for me to speak Spanish. And I was helping my parents a lot to navigate the city. I would be on the phone with the with the electric company and with the water company. Sometimes they'll take me go to the bank to help them interpret for the loan officer. I did a lot of things I was not supposed to do as a young child. But I'm hoping with the data from the survey, we can kind of show that there's still a large amount of people who need access to things in Spanish, things in a language they understand. And what I mean by that is not done through Google Translate simply. It needs to be vetted by actual native Spanish speakers, preferably working, people. Because too many times we see translations and they're automated and not vetted by native speakers. So I think, at the first level, I think we're hoping that the results of the study can help show that there is this big need to provide linguistic access, basically.
Yeah, Jose, do you have a comment?
Just wanted to acknowledge something, that there's a slight generational gap and I'm learning from our youth, right? So we keep referring to Latinos, and we also have Hispanics, we also have Latinx. And those are similar but different demographics and individual representations of who we are. And I just want to acknowledge that, right, in the conversation. And also, with our youth, there's a difference that I've noticed. They're not interested, I'm speaking on behalf of our young people, I probably shouldn't, but they've corrected me. And they don't like to segment themselves and assimilate into a specific culture. They want to create their own path. They want to be integrated, but they want to be themselves and be part of a diverse society in which it's no longer separated by race. One of the advantages of the Latino community that we bring to the United States is that we're an ethnic group. We're not a racial group. So you will see, regardless of your background, you will see yourself represented in the Latino culture because we're a little bit of each one of you.
I only have about 30 seconds left, and I want to clear something up. I want to use this as an opportunity to clear something up because you mentioned Latinx. Yes. And we have heard, after we started using that, we have heard that there are people in the community who don't like that term.
Yes.
Is that true?
Absolutely. And quickly with the 30 seconds, the way I've learned it's a Latin American coalition to represent different constituencies. It says demographic representation. So the way I've worked with different groups is that they identify themselves, and I respect that identification.
And with that, we have to stop. It's Charlotte Talks. It's Charlotte Talks on WFAE and WFAE.org. I'm Mike Collins. I'm here with Hilda Gurdian, the publisher of La Noticia. She's my co-host for this special edition of Charlotte Talks, EQUALibrium, the growing impact and influence of Latinos on the Charlotte area. We're coming to you with a live audience from the Charlotte Museum of History with Federico Rios with the City of Charlotte, Rocio Gonzalez with the Women's Business Center of Charlotte, Jose Hernandez Paris, Executive Director of the Latin American Coalition, and Lennon Caro, Lead Community Researcher for the Camino Research Institute. One area, Federico, that Latino influence is going to be felt more and more is at the ballot box, but less than a third of the voting age Latino population participates in the voting process. What can be done to increase that?
Wow, it's a great question. If I had the answer to it, I'd probably make a lot more money. I would say so we have two individuals in the back that are wearing Latino tu voto cuenta. So it's those campaigns. It's being proactive and reaching out to young people, ensuring that they understand, and this is a really difficult piece, and I'm thankful for WFAE for putting forth policy and really having these deep discussions, understanding that policy decisions today will impact you significantly over time. And you have the opportunity to have your voice heard. The vote is the most powerful thing we have in this community. And so continuing to press forward and impress upon our young people writ large. It's not just Latino young people that aren't voting, y'all. It's all young people. It's a subset of Latinos that aren't voting, and oftentimes it's very issue specific. We saw this with the sheriff race a couple of years ago. All of a sudden we had an influx of people that did not vote prior. We need to ensure as a community that we're promoting the importance of every single race.
Yeah. I have a comment in this regard. Today in lanoticia.com, I read a story that said that 40% of the Latinos who are registered to vote and they are registered as independent, they don't know who are they going to vote. And this was an statistic given by Naleo. So there is one answer. Maybe what we need to do, one of the things that we need to do is to give our Latinos voters or registered to vote information about the candidates, who they are, what do they value, what do they stand for. I mean, are they going to protect our community or not? So that's something that we can do. All of us leaders in the community, all of us members of the media, everybody, and of course Wendy Pascual and her team with Latino, Your Vote Counts. That's what we need to do, right? Give them information on what the candidates, who the candidates are.
Let me give you an impossible question to answer, Jose, because I like you so much. As we head into the midterms, we know that Latino voters are voting more and more, not enough perhaps, but more and more, and we also know that they have traditionally voted for Democratic candidates, but that is changing. More and more of them are turning their attention to the Republican Party and Republican candidates. We live in a Democratic county and a democratically controlled city. If Latinos are the future, what does that mean for the political makeup of our city and county in the future?
It's a great question. Here's where cultural influences, historical reasons for migrating, and religious differences come to play. We have a underlying very conservative religious community in the Latino community, and that tends to vote Republican because of a number of issues that they identify with. We also have a very progressive youth group who tend to vote and are attracted to more liberal views than their parents. However, the ones who are voting are the adults right now, but the ones who will vote in the future are the youth. So I think there will be a transitional change and is not far away from the political change that has happened in the rest of America. And that is a challenge that we're going to have to face, I think, as a community.
Lennon.
It's important to emphasize that the Latino community is not a monolith. There's many diverse different ideologies within the Latino community, and that's great because it's richer, right? Hopefully, if more Latinos participate in voting, we can get the Democrats and Republicans to pay attention to the Latino community so we can have a bigger impact, right? So, and really quick, thanks. Community Research Institute is working closely with Wendy and her group, Latino Tu Voto Cuenta, to do a short survey study to better understand why are Latinos not so engaged in voting.
I want to spend just a short amount of time talking about something we've spent years, decades talking about in this country, and that is Daca. A federal appeals court has found that the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA program, violates U.S. immigration law and has been sent back now to a lower court in Texas for them to review this new Biden administration regulation that is meant to strengthen DACA, but in fact may be illegal. We'll see. The courts see fundamental, substantive defects in the DACA program, and if nothing changes, the program could end, and it's in the courts right now. So I know you have a question about that.
Yes, I do. For Federico, and you can comment also. What has been the reaction in the community to this news, Federico?
I mean, it draws the air out of the room. You have people that are serving as teachers, as nurses, that are serving this community, that have given of themselves dutifully, and they're being told that they're not enough. That because of something that was outside of their control, their parents need to leave some circumstance or situation, that they're not good enough to be here and continue the service that they provide for our community. It's it's jarring. And these policies are not politically neutral. Even what happens in the court is not politically neutral. And it gravely impacts families and us. Again, $16 billion GDP locally. You think DACA recipients don't factor into that? You think that that's not gonna affect us if all those people all of a sudden lose their status? Of course it is. And we continue to lose out and fail to realize the humanity of these people.
Jose?
Okay. I love this country. And one of the beauties that have been playing out is that this is not something for the courts to solve. It is something for Congress to act. And they have failed to act for over 30 years. And we're going to have to face this. And it's so unfortunately to see a program where 97% of DACA recipients are contributing to this community, have been the backbone during the COVID epidemic, and now we're turning their backs on them. And so I think we have to elect the right people, and those people are going to have to protect our community and make sure that everyone is included.
So let's move out of the darkness and back into the light for a second here. Rocio, if the future is Latino in Charlotte, that means more and more Latinos will be in businesses, opening their own businesses, working for other businesses. Right now, however, big banks don't have a tradition of supporting Latino startups. They just don't. Only 20% of Latino-owned businesses that applied for a national bank loan over $100,000 received funding compared to 50% of white-owned businesses. The entrepreneurial spirit of these folks is tied to business. So how are they doing it without big bank support?
Well, they are doing it with their heart and their head, and with all of their wealth from their families. They're doing it with really working hard, because yes, it's true, it is quite difficult to have access to capital. There are other organizations that are not banks or credit unions. They are called CDFIs. They are community development financial institutions, and are there to support the underserved minority community, not just the Latinos. And we see time and time again that the biggest barrier for minority-owned businesses is to have access to capital.
Yeah.
And so what they do is begin with the family wealth and work really hard and continue to invest in their business. We see that they're later on bankable after they have been in business for 4, 5, 6 years, and they can really prove themselves. But we see other startups that after the second or third year, they are able to have access to capital. So there's a big disparity. And that's why the community development financial institutions are there to support.
Jose, all you have to do is go through certain areas of town to see the influence that's already being felt outwardly by the Latino population. Drive up and down South Boulevard, drive up and down Central Avenue, and you can see those businesses, evidence of those businesses. How do you spread those businesses throughout the Charlotte area and keep them out of those two corridors, or get them out of those two corridors?
Yeah, our building is in the Central Avenue corridor, and I've seen the gentrification coming from uptown Charlotte, moving our way. And what's happening, unfortunately, is that you are moving out the typical Mexican restaurant and turning it into a Qdoba. And it's unfortunate because of the richness, the cultural and the business opportunity and the entrepreneurship that is brought by these immigrant families. And unfortunately, real estate is a huge part of the cost of these families in order to stay in business. A way to sustain that, I think, is the reinvestment of the city and the county and the state into minority businesses and making sure that they're protected, that they're funded, and that they have an opportunity to continue to develop. So I think it's just investing or reinvesting what we have so that they can be sustained.
Federico, you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to share that. That's spot on, Jose. Good job. So the city has invested tens of millions of dollars in the corridors of opportunity. Albemarle Road, Central Avenue being a significant portion of that funding. I know I saw Jose Alvarez with Prospera, who works alongside our efforts to ensure that Latino businesses, immigrant businesses, have the support that they need to remain and to be successful in their work. I don't think the question is, can we get them to migrate away from where they currently are, but can we get new ones to open in these other areas? And by leveling the playing field and really investing deeply, which the city is committed to doing, which other banks have committed to doing. The Beyond Open grant, currently open with the Foundation for the Carolinas, is a huge opportunity for small businesses. We are creating a means by which to achieve that very goal.
And I would like to add that one of the biggest barriers too is the price of real estate. The commercial real estate is really affecting the creation of small businesses and also the expansion of small businesses throughout Mecklenburg County, thus keeping the corridors of opportunity so tight. So that's another thing that we can work on.
Federico, because the Latino community is the fastest growing segment of our population, and because, of course, we have many of them are workers and they need transportation, what kind of thought is the city given to ensuring public transportation adequately serve these people?
I think it's a deep portion of Katz's work to better understand creating a mobility network to best serve those populations. The most utilized bus line in the city goes down Central Avenue. I believe it's the 7 line. The 9 line, thank you. And so you continue to see this need, and that is being prioritized in that process. It also takes community members readily sharing their experiences. Listen, here's the secret to the city of Charlotte. Oftentimes, all it takes is an email, a phone call, a communication of some sort with a representative to get your need addressed. The more people that do that, the better off you are, your need gets addressed.
Thank you. Rocio, the influence of our Latino population has been felt in almost every aspect of commerce. There are many Latino professionals moving here, starting law practices, dental practices, chiropractic practices, you name it, a lot. And what do you think is the biggest misconception the general public has about these folks and their contributions?
Thank you for that question, and it goes tied to a lot of the comments that we have made here that sometimes the one sad story or incorrect or illegal story of one member of the Latino community is the focus of the attention, and all of these wonderful stories and families and neighborhoods and communities of the Latino community are not talked about. So the misconception is that the community comes here to take, that we're takers and not givers. I would like to share with you that the latest Latino GDP study from 2020 says that if all U.S. Latinos in the United States would be a whole nation, we would make the number 5 largest economy in the world. So we are here to give. We're here to invest, to produce, to pay federal, state, and municipal taxes. So that's the biggest misconception, that we don't support and we don't provide, but we do. We do provide.
This hour has flown by. This is the first in a series of conversations that our diversity team at WFAE will be producing. EQUALibrium is what it's called. This one is called The Growing Impact and Influence of Latinos on the Charlotte area. And I want to thank all of our panelists and my guest host, my co-host here, our moderator, Hilda Gurdian from La Noticia. Federico Rios from the city of Charlotte, Rocio Gonzalez from the Women's Business Center of Charlotte, Jose Hernandez Paris, Executive Director of the Latin American Coalition, and Lenin Caro, Lead Community Researcher for Community Research Institute. Thank you all for being here this hour, and thank you all for coming.
We're going to shift over to our Q&A portion, but before we do that, I don't want to let any more time go by without thanking the person who has been putting events like this together for WFAE and the Race and Equity team here. We want to thank our whole Race and Equity team, but also want to thank our community engagement producer, Dante Miller, for some really great work. And
Okay.
with that, we have the Q&A section. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so we're going to send microphones around. If you want to either stand up or raise your hand, we'll bring a microphone to you, and we'll take questions for the next 100 years. So. Here we go. Gabe's got it.
Okay. Patrick Chang, and I have a couple of comments to employment and also the statistics I think you mentioned, Mike, about the 93,000 that doesn't have any report, as Rocio said, regarding who those people are. Grameen Bank has celebrated 10 years in the city of Charlotte. They have now over 5,000 Latinas who have received funding to start businesses here in Charlotte. The city of Charlotte was a charter member in bringing Grameen Bank to Charlotte. If you're not familiar with Grameen, it's a microfinance organization. And to Rocio's point, and I forget the name, is a
CDFI, Community Development Funding Institution.
Okay, so I'm not
Search
sure
for iCapital.
if Grameen is part of that, but again, Grameen has been here for 10 years, and as I said, over 5,000 Latinas are benefiting from that. The second point that I'd like to bring up is with regard to the politics and the influence. We've talked about the number of Latinos who are not voting, but what I have to say is that if we put more Latinos in positions to be voted for, if you look at the city council, if you look at the city commission, there is one person at the state legislature who is Latino, and he's not from Charlotte, Mecklenburg. So that's my point as far as the politics in this community is concerned. Thank you.
Gabe, right here.
I really appreciate everything discussed. Rocia, my daughter used to work with you as a summer volunteer because she's bilingual. She's now an immigration lawyer in New York City.
Oh. Yes, yes. Awesome.
To the point that the last speaker made, and I did the first of many business transactions with Latinos here in Charlotte in 1990, and have continued a very successful career with them of doing business. Dan Ramirez was a close personal friend, first Latino elected to office in this county. And then C.C. Ramirez and Harold Cogdill, many people don't know he was Latino as well. You are emerging as the 8th largest city in North Carolina, by my calculations, ahead of Wilmington even, for example. How can you recruit the political leadership the gentleman behind was talking about? Because I have supported them for years and been delighted by how accessible they were to the voters. How is that coming along?
So I work for the city, so I can't really talk about this. But I mean, there's a representative, I think, here that's running for office for school board who's Latino, I understand. So there are candidates. Are those candidates getting the same amount of airtime? Are they getting the publicity? I can't speak to that. We do have individuals that have prioritized their connections to the Latino community, whether that be Jennifer De La Hara on the school board, or Marjorie Molina now on city council, individuals that are fully bilingual and support the Latino community and its needs. But I do feel representation is important, and I think it's an issue that the community has to take on, right?
Can I ask this? People who come here can't vote. They have to become citizens to vote. People who become citizens have to learn more about America than native-born Americans.
Yes.
They can probably tell you every president of the United States in order and what they did. We can't. So why is it, if you have to go through all those hoops and you successfully become a citizen, why don't you then want to participate? Why aren't people clamoring to vote and to run for office?
I think we discount the complexity of the system and the fact that so many people are just surviving, right? So being transparent, born and raised in New York, US citizen, I didn't know who my city council rep was in New York. I couldn't tell you. I voted the whole Democratic ticket. That's what I did. And I prioritized it because I was the one that helped my mother prepare for her citizenship exam. And I had a pride related to my experience as a citizen. She prioritized it, but did she understand the nuance and the depth of what was occurring? No. So the simplest thing for us was just vote the candidates. We didn't necessarily understand all that we were doing in that process. I think there's a great deal more education that's needed. I think there's a great deal more of promoting and prioritizing the vote.
I want to make two separate points really quickly. So the first one is I think we need to be aware of for a lot of immigrants, their social history of where they come from, where sometimes they don't view the government as something worthy to vote for anyway. So there's that, right? It could be, their own social history or expectations about what government is, and that might lead to the apathy. The second thing is, look, I'm a U.S.-born Latino. I speak English better than Spanish, okay? And even I had a hard time trying to find information about the candidates that I was trying to vote for. I only learned last year that you can go to the Mecklenburg County voter website to find your sample ballot and then do your own research. But even then, I'm finding that a lot of the websites and information about the candidates are not accessible in Spanish. So it's like, if you don't provide it in the language they understand, then how do you expect them to actually, care about you in a way, you know what I mean? So I think those are two important things to consider when we're trying to think through voter apathy among Latinos.
Buenas noches. I am Nora Gomez Saxon, and I am a teacher with 25 years of experience.
And you've been on this program.
Absolutely, and
Yes,
I love it. Anytime. When I grow up, I want to be a member of the school board, and I want to implement some changes that we need in the classroom. But I cannot do it right now. Right. I know how to do it, I want to do it, but I have to work because I have to pay my bills. So that is the answer for many of the questions that you have. Yeah. Why we don't participate, why we don't have more leaders running for positions? Because we are in the surviving stage. Maybe our kids, no, for sure, our kids, or my students. Please vote for me next time.
Run in my district and you have my vote, because you were not only a great guest, I could tell by the way you answered my questions what a great teacher you are. Thank you.
My name is Stephen Rushing. For the gentleman in the back, y la señora. I am the only Latino running for school board member this year in District 3. One of my platforms is what the gentleman up front said, where it's hard to get translation for the parents between the teachers. Back in the 80s, I'm telling my age, my mother didn't get any help, so I translated, and when I got in trouble, I lied. The same thing is happening now, because I was there at the school picking up my daughter, and I had to translate for someone else because nobody up front spoke Spanish. For the people up front, how can we make that needle move faster than 30 years?
Yeah.
And please, if you are in District 3, please, I'm here to help.
Yeah,
Jose.
I made a comment at a recent event in which I mentioned that I've been here for 45 years and that it's taken me most of those 45 years to create influence and access for myself in order to be able to make a difference in my own community. And that it shouldn't take that long for newer generations to get to that point. After that comment, I had a number of meetings with a lot of young people who are in positions in city government and other organizations here in Charlotte, Health, others, where they have found a ceiling where they have been segmented only to work with a specific group, limiting their ability to develop themselves into professionals, in which they get to a position in which they can make choices like run for office. So there is a challenge in Charlotte right now in which we are welcoming this workforce. We are welcome as a thriving force for the economy, but we're not necessarily given the opportunity to reach higher levels in which we're represented not only in politics, but represented as well as part of our society. So it is something that rapidly needs to change, and it's our biggest awareness right now that we need to work on as a community.
Lennon, you brought this up earlier, and I read it in your report, and it was something I already knew about because we had done a program on it about kids in schools who could go to college. They just don't understand the process of how you get there, the application process, what colleges are looking for in those applicants, the importance of extracurricular activities. They just don't know because they come from another country and it's different there. What can CMS do to make that as easy for those students as it is for people who were born and raised here?
Well, I guess the first thing they can do is hire more bilingual staff to do things like workshops, to orient the parents to the U.S. education system. You know, the expectation of what you're supposed to do in high school, how to go to college. Now, I want to be clear, I don't think that should start in high school. I think that should start way earlier. Okay. In which, you know, not only should CMS be educating the children of the Latino immigrants, but they should also try to think through ways on how to inform Latino parents on how to navigate the school system as their children go up.
Plug for CMS. Okay. In this past budget, we got approved a position that's going to be part of the Latin American Coalition. That is an immigrant integration specialist to work with international families to do exactly what you're saying, have workshops about the school district, everything related to how public education works in the United States so that the parents are able to engage and support their children better so the graduation rates increase and children stay in school and be able to go to college.
So I'll add to this. One, kudos to Jose for standing up that program and the mentorship program that preceded that with ELL students in the district. I sit on the board and would be remiss if not mentioning the work that Communities in Schools does. Here locally, several Communities in Schools members and former members in the crowd. That organization has specifically tried to address the needs of our ELL learners in schools around the city. But I would add, again, we talked about representation and need for politicians. Each one of you has the ability to tell your representative what you want. And if you want money directed in the budget towards something, you have the power yourself right now, whether or not you're a resident of Mecklenburg County, you can send an email. Believe me, there's a lot of people that show up to these city council meetings that do not live in Charlotte, but they make their voice heard. You all have the ability to tell the people in power what you want. So it's just as much on you as it is on that representative.
But when it comes to school children, some of their parents may be undocumented, so they may not feel they have the freedom to even speak up or even be at the meeting for that.
But they're communicating with individuals that can on their behalf. And that's the part that I think we fail to realize. Again, having served in the school system, I carry those stories with me. They're a part of who I am. I get to advocate for those individuals. Jose and his organization gets to do the same, right? And so it's important, whoever has the capacity, the ability, and can be heard. And believe me, undocumented people still reach out to us. They still tell us those stories. Yes, we're gonna encounter people with fear, but in every 10 people of fear, there's one person that says, you know what, I've had enough and I have to say my piece. And that's enough to move the dial.
Okay.
Good evening, Leo Scarpati, and great conversation. I wanted to shed some insight onto some of those, the profile of Latino voters. So the statistics are, we have almost 43,000 registered Latino voters in Mecklenburg County. We have 17,000 of those are unaffiliated. So when we talk about the system, right? So somebody running for office, it's usually a two-party system in North Carolina unless you want to go through the obstacles of getting 5,000 votes or 5,000 signatures just to get your name on the ballot, yada, yada, yada. So these are some of the obstacles that are happening from a state level, right? So when we look at it as a state legislature, but I do want to highlight that of those 43,000 estimated, under 40, we have about 26,000 voters. So it is 40 and under where we have a majority of our voters.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is her mic on?
I don't think so.
I think it might be broken.
It's a new battery.
It's public radio.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for the very interesting discussion. My name is Gonzalez Garcia, Executive Director of Circo de Luz, and a fabulous women, all-female team is joining me here today. Our organization is Charlotte-based. It's a nonprofit grassroots organization supporting girls and young women through middle school and high school, and through holistic programming and mentoring, so they beat some of the odds that we have been discussing here today, and then with scholarships so they can pursue the path of their choice, whether that is college or a non-collegiate path. So knowing this, and we've been talking about the challenges with data, and the Latino, or Latinx, or Hispanic community is so diverse, and you were mentioning that earlier. What are some of the trends that you are seeing in terms of gender? Because if we don't disaggregate the data, we don't know, and we know that data informs policy, data informs change, data sparks action. And if we don't have it, we cannot move forward in such effective manner. We are moving forward, but we could do it even better with the information and the tools we need. So what are some of the trends that you are seeing in terms of young girls, women, young women, through your different fields, whether that's business, whether that's education, economic power, and so on? Thank you.
Well, I would like to say that from the Women's Business Center point of view, we have seen a large number of women-owned businesses started in North Carolina, and Latina businesses are starting in North Carolina. And I think it's a matter of having that education, coming to a country with a degree, with a lot of knowledge, and finding themselves trapped into lack of employment or lack of feeling that they belong into the community. So these are the perfect examples of female entrepreneurs that are opening businesses in consulting, in web design, in many other professional ventures that don't necessarily require a recertification of their profession here. So that's kind of like the trend. If they're unable to fulfill their dreams of following their profession in an employment, then rest assured they will become entrepreneurs and hire many people in the community here.
So because the fund drive is on goal, we were able to replace the batteries in that microphone.
No, not yet.
No, we're good. We're good.
All
right.
You still need to raise more funds.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sylvia Owen. It's great to see you. I've been working now with CMS for 6 months after working for 4 years for Telemundo Charlotte. It's been a pleasure. I'm blessed to help the Hispanic community. I work for the communications department, and I think our leaders, they need to understand the need first. It's been hard, but it's great to have you guys here to talk about this topic. It's very important. And I have a question for you, Federico. For me, it's been hard to tell the leaders that I want to help the Hispanic community. That's my passion. How you balance helping the Hispanic community and the American, the Black community, the white community. That's always been my fight with my team, because I love to do that.
Yeah, whoa, what a question. All right, so my charge is to be the City of Charlotte's equity officer. Equity is universal, right? Mm-hmm. You push for equity for everyone. We all start at different places and spaces. So within the context of Charlotte, you have to relate the immigrant experience to the experience of the historic disenfranchised group in this community, which is the African American community. And you have to find the similarities in those contexts. You have to be able to tell that story, and you have to be able to weave that experience together so that people realize they're two groups fighting the same fights, right? when we look at where immigrants have clustered in our community, especially low-wage earners, they've clustered in the same pockets of poverty that have historically been African American predominant in Charlotte. So if we're living together, if we're coexisting, we have to form coalitions. We have to be able to tell the same narrative about the experiences we're having to move us past. So it's important to level set. I mean, in honesty, Charlotte is a migration place in part because this community made a choice to not properly invest in African Americans. If we look at the data related to the Leading on Opportunity report, and I know that's changed, I know you guys did some reporting on this, but 50th out of 50, we were 50th out of 50. Why? Because in 1980 to 1982, less than 1% of our population was foreign born, so who was being left behind? African Americans, right? Why did I migrate from New York? Because there was an opportunity here. Why was there an opportunity here? Because someone was left behind. It is our charge to ensure that people are not left behind again.
Hi, I'm Lisa Cook. I'm also a CMS employee. I'm in the Federal Programs Department. And very much like Sylvia, I've spent all my life pursuing education because when I was a young child, I did not see myself in any of my teachers or my leaders. So this has been my life's journey, is being that face, being that representation, being that voice for all of the Latinos that I come in contact, and when they see me, they say, oh my gosh, are you gonna be the next principal? And I said, no, I'm doing my internship here, but I hope to one day. And so I had a question, but you've already answered it. So I guess I have more of a comment for Lennon, which is, I know representation matters, and I know you know, but I guess we should work together to do the research to actually quantify and let the world see that it really does matter. It's not just sharing our opinions, but actually sharing facts.
Yeah. No, it's really important, and that's the purpose of the report that we hope CMS would find useful data points in. I mean, the whole reason why we're doing this is because Latino communities in general are not that well researched, not only in Mecklenburg County, but across North Carolina. The last specific project on the Latino communities back in 2006. It was a great report, the first of its kind. But on the state level, that hasn't been done since 2003, some kind of systematic study on the Latino community. So yeah, hopefully we're filling a gap with the new report release for Mecklenburg County, and we hope that the data points there concerning education of children, because that came up in the focus groups, and that certainly came up in the survey responses. Hopefully CMS can utilize that to better inform their own services.
Is this on? Well, they're searching for a new superintendent, so I think this is a great community, like the great opportunity that we have now to participate in order to find probably a Hispanic superintendent. Why not? So we can make a difference.
Okay. The question is for Lennon. I read your report, and I have a question about it. Excluding for undocumented immigrants, how are Latinos doing in Mecklenburg County, right? So I think in the report says about 30% are American citizens, and then you discount however many undocumented there are, so that leaves individuals with Daca, green cards, and TPS. So, and Daca was implemented in 2016, approximately about a decade ago. So how are they better off after Daca? Is this group entering the middle class? That's my question.
As in, how do DACA recipients answer questions in terms of like what their position is and working, or what their level of need for resources is compared to the other groups in the survey?
No. Okay, so your survey asks for like what your legal status is. Your survey also asks for like how much money you make, what your profession is, and all other stuff, right? So my question is, excluding undocumented individuals who have an obvious barrier to enter the middle class, how are the rest of the group, like the DACA recipients, the TPS, the green cards, the American citizens, how are they doing? Are they better off today than they were 10 years ago?
So the only way I can make like a longitudinal statement, like comparison, like let's say the 2006 study to now, unfortunately, what we're seeing is that across the different demographics, whether it's whether they're documented or they have a temporary, documentation status or undocumented, unfortunately, we're seeing the same results from 2006, as in they still have a higher need for access to preventative health services, dental services, and things like that. They're still experiencing issues in relation to language access and accessing, services in a language they understand. And finally, there is still this issue related to and this is a point that is a little hard to explain quickly, but during focus groups, we're finding that there are a lot of undocumented Latinos that feel like the documented Latinos don't treat them that well, that there is this discrimination between those that are documented who have more of a permanent status, U.S. citizens, green card, and between those that are not totally documented or undocumented. And we see this, we saw the same exact things in the 2006 report in the results we found today. So in my eyes, I can only think that not much has improved between people who were a certain status 10 years ago to now, unfortunately, at least from the data I could, extrapolate from.
Okay, but you mentioned that you mentioned the language barriers, but I have a difficult time believing that, right? Because if you are an American-born citizen, chances are that you only speak one language. You speak only English, right? I can think of, and if you are here as a DACA recipient, chances are that you came here as a child, and this is the only system that you know, and chances are that you feel more comfortable in English than you do in Spanish. If you are a TPS recipient, you have the means to
at least get some
you have assets, right? So when you mention the language barrier, I have a difficult time believing that the language barrier is still a roadblock or barrier for individuals or who are either fully documented or American citizens or still have some type of protection status. So I was just curious. I was curious to know, because it's not outlined in your report, as to how better off are these individuals in comparison to undocumented. And yes, what you said about the tension between documented and undocumented, it's well known, not talked about. It's talked about in academia, but not among polite company. But it's evident in places like Miami and New York City, where Cubans have legal status and others don't. In New York City, where at least in the 80s and the 90s, Puerto Ricans were not treated very well, but they were American citizens, and the rest of brown people were not. So it's not a secret, but again, to come full circle, it's not something that is addressed in your report, but I would like to see it. How better off are these individuals who are citizens, green card holders, TPS holders, DACA holders? How better off are they in comparison to the rest of the population? And if they're not entering the middle class, why not? What's the roadblock?
Yeah. I mean, we'll have to do a reanalysis of the data. But, if you're curious about it and, you want to submit an inquiry, you can email us. That's kind of the purpose of our research institute. We want to be accessible to the community. So please reach out to us. Let us know specifically what you want to investigate. And we can have our team looking in those questions. If you want to sit down and meet with us at the at Camino, we'd be happy to talk to you and go through the data.
I just want to really quickly appreciate what you said. And I am so glad that there's a research institute, because I think there are some points that are only a point in time of a focus group in certain individuals. But when you look at the representation of the demographics in the representation in the study, we have sometimes the tale of two cities. And I will have to acknowledge that here there's some privilege that comes with where we came from. South Americans, Puerto Ricans, people who have come here with a certain level of, just because of the migration process of education, right? And there's a group that I feel have been left out, not in the study, but overall, of Central Americans and other individuals that need, their voices need to be raised and are not represented here. And I have to acknowledge that voice is not in the room right now. and that is an important and incredible part of our community. And we need to continue to do research and get the data in order for those voices also to be represented in the work that we do.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add to that. 2 points. One, absolutely right. This panel is 3.5 Colombians. The other half of me is Puerto Rican. But so yeah, representation is important. I think when we look at the numbers nationality-wise, after Mexican, El Salvadorian, Honduran, Guatemalan make up the largest percentage of our Latino population, and they're often not in these spaces. Simultaneously, though it is not a data point, this is anecdotal, the bulk of businesses that are owned by Central Americans, as per the information I've received anecdotally, are owned by TPS recipients, Central American TPS recipients. And so there's that incredible value, that entrepreneurial spirit that is experienced among these individuals and has afforded them an opportunity. Do I know whether or not they're fully middle class? You owning a business does not make you middle class, right? So it's hard to extrapolate that, but it's definitely something we've heard.
So we have time, I think, for one, maybe two more questions.
Okay, my name is Magbis Nunez, and I work with Atrium Health. I work with the community as a community liaison, and I am also a founder and director with the Venezuelans Alliance. I have a question. I moved here 21-year-old. It's making. So I noticed that the Latino community is growing. We are like 14%, 15%, but I don't see the same balance in the staff, bilingual staff in the school system. I don't see the same balance in the health system. And it's so sad when I hear that you have to translate the teacher. I have seen kids, teenagers, translating NICU baby prognosis. So for me, that's sad. I don't see anything that I'm like kind of worrying about everything with the school system. How we can influence the school system? How can influence the health system to hire more bilingual and bicultural staff? I know that about 10 bilingual teachers moved to Denver, Colorado, because they didn't have any opportunity here in Mecklenburg County. And you are looking for teachers here. You don't have teachers, but the other system and other states are hiring these teachers. They have to move because they don't have opportunity here. What can we do? How we can influence the system to increase? Because I don't see, I have many years working in Atrium. I would like to see more. And it's saying, it's not only Atrium, it's other clinic. It's Novantu. We have 7% more Latino in the banking. Why we have 3% more Latinos in the health system?
And don't you, I'm trying to find it in my notes and I can't find it. Isn't that one of the questions you looked at in your survey, the difficulty that people have with getting medical care and speaking to doctors in a bilingual situation?
Yeah, if I remember right, anyone can go to the report to correct me, but I believe 75% of the participants of the survey said Spanish was their primary language, but only 25% of them have a provider that speaks their language. So it's a big discrepancy when it comes to language access. Because imagine trying to understand your health in a language that you don't completely understand.
Right.
And this goes tied to the very first question that you were posing, how can we bring value to being bilingual and bicultural? What can we do to should they be receiving more salary? And that's why other cities and other states are kind of stealing our talent, because they are seeing the value and they're providing those benefits. So I know Charlotte could definitely do better in that.
We should end it there because that brings it full circle, but we do have one more question, so we won't.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Annabelle, and I'm a community outreach person also in education and health. And I wanted to address a couple of things that were mentioned. One, you asked why we don't vote. One of the reasons might be, as you mentioned, Jose, the community, the Spanish-speaking community here, the majority are from Central America, where they're persecuted when their issues of parties come around. So they will be scared to go to the polls, one. Second, they are the ones with those businesses that work 24/7. So they don't have the time to go voting. Third, language. they don't have the same level of education as you mentioned from people from South America. These are the ones that are really disenfranchised. And I want to, thank you. And I want to mention just a very quick story because I think that gives the perspective that we say we don't know here in the United States. My husband is from the US, and he always said, why do people come here? It's so hard for them. And I said, because where they're from is even harder. And he kept on saying this. He goes, well, I grew up poor. It was hard. So I happened to be from El Salvador, and we visited. And he never again mentioned that he was poor.
Yes.
Because that is the way that somebody's living in a cardboard house, no matter how horrible it's here, that you're treated like nothing, that you're looked at down, that you're taught that you should go back to your country, no matter what anybody tells you, that situation is 1,000 times better than what you had back home. Wow. And you're having people here from the northern quadrant of Central America that are coming here that, if you're lucky, with third-grade education. And you're expecting those individuals to learn about voting. We have representatives here. How many of you have that translated into Spanish? So somebody can go and vote with you, for you. I had a very big discussion with my mom, very upset at her. She just moved to my sister's house and did not register to vote. And her thing was, she's 83 years old. And she said, I don't know who to vote for. I don't understand. I don't know how that influences me. I said, well, you need to look at people that have your values, that represent you. She goes, I don't know. And so although she's a U.S. citizen, you're not going to get her vote, because for her, it will require to have her daughters explain to her who is the person voting in her area, read everything to her, bring her to the polls, have it translated to Spanish. So if you want more Latino vote, all those representing, translate it into Spanish. And tell us who you really are and what you're going to do for our community, because we're incredibly loyal. If you do something for me, you got me for life. And employers that do not understand this, really shame on you, and sad, really sad for you, because I just left a position with a health system that seems to understand black and white. And although they say they have a diversity and inclusion team, diversity does not include people that look like me. And it does not include people that are from India, because we've had this conversation of somebody from the Philippines. They were feeling exactly the same way we are. So it's either black or white, but nothing in between. So I just wanted to make that comment. Wow. Thank you for your time.
Come be on the program. Seriously. Before we say goodnight, I have to turn it over to the very striped Jennifer Lang.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jennifer Lang with WFAE, and I just wanted to let you know that we, partnered with La Noticia, do publish voters' guides in English and Spanish, and look for those coming very soon. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Hilda. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. And you can donate at 704-549-9000.